Good afternoon. Today is Friday, May 22nd. I'm Jim Weatherup, Chairman of the Oswego County Legislature. Joining me today are Diane Oldenburg, Senior Public Health Educator for the Oswego County Health Department, and Richard Balch, Investigator for the Child Protective Services Unit of the County Department of Social Services. More than 1 million American men and women have died in service to their country, from the American Revolution to those in military assignments around the world and globe today. That is an incredible heritage that we as Americans share, respect, and treasure. Despite the coronavirus pandemic, there are still many ways to observe Memorial Day while safeguarding our community's health and safety. Our families can practice our traditions and we can start new ones. Bring flowers to a veteran's grave. Take a walk around one of Oswego County's own important military sites such as Spy Island, Fort Ontario, or Fort Brewerton. Call a soldier or a veteran and thank them for their service. In order for our region to continue to the next phase of reopening, we all need to do our part to keep COVID-19 from spreading. That means adhere to social distancing, wear a mask in public, and wash your hands frequently. If you are spending time with family and friends, bring your own food, try not to congregate indoors, and meet in groups of 10 or less. Now Diane will give us an update on where we stand today. Diane?
Thank you, Chairman Weatherup. As of today, we've had 3,860 residents tested for coronavirus. We've had 92 residents test positive. We have 69 residents that have recovered from COVID-19, and we have 3 deaths that are related to COVID-19. Currently, there are 20 active cases of COVID-19 in the county. We've had 3,528 negative test results returned to the health department. We have 107 county residents in mandatory isolation or quarantine. In addition, the county is partnering next week with SUNY Upstate to bring some mobile COVID testing to the county. That will be held on May 27th and 28th at CitiBOCES in Mexico. Residents interested in being tested for COVID at that location would need to make an appointment with SUNY Upstate by calling 315-464-2582. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. Our guest today is Richard Balch, Investigator for the Child Protective Services Unit of the County Department of Social Services. They are responsible for investigating reports of suspected abuse and maltreatment of children in Oswego County. They have a daunting job, and their work doesn't stop because of coronavirus. We invited Richard today to share information about the important work that they do. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman Weatherup. I would like to start by assuring Oswego County residents that our county's Child Protective Service units are still available, operating in full force. CPS investigators have not been on pause during this pandemic. Investigators remain standing at the ready to deploy into the community 24/7, holding the line in defense of our county's most valuable citizens, our children. I appreciate the opportunity today to discuss what it means to be a CPS investigator, serving families as well as how citizens concerned about a child experiencing neglect or abuse in their neighborhood or family can report a situation to the State Central Register. The New York State Office of Children and Family Services maintains a statewide central register of child maltreatment, also known as the SCR, which is centralized in Albany. The SCR receives calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then distributes reports to the county that will conduct the investigation. Everyone who suspects child abuse or neglect can make a report. Professionals must report by law and are called mandated reporters. But you can report if you are worried about a child. As a voluntary reporter, you can take action to protect children. During the first few weeks of the social distancing and quarantine, we experienced a decrease in calls. There were less eyes on the vulnerable children. Children are no longer being seen by teachers at school, by doctors, after school, or daycare workers, counselors, and social workers. School clinics and programs for children were closed. Those who legally must report abuse and neglect to the SCR no longer are a protective factor for vulnerable children. Parents and those living in households with children are more overwhelmed and more apt to take out their anger on those who can at least protect themselves. I have no doubt the coronavirus is keeping children hidden in harm's way. It has made it much more difficult to combat child abuse. With the reduced number of mandated reporters having direct contact with children due to the coronavirus outbreak, it is a moral imperative that you, the volunteer reporter, our neighbors, friends, and relatives, make the call to the SCR. If you have reasonable cause to suspect that a child is being abused or neglected by a parent, guardian, or custodian, it is your obligation to make the call. Having knowledge of a child being abused and doing nothing as if you yourself were neglecting that child. Do your civic duty and step up and protect our children. When you call the SCR to file a report of child abuse or neglect, you don't have to give your name. You can make an anonymous report if you choose to do so. If you do give your name, it provides me, an investigator, an opportunity to gather more information. We really prefer you provide your name and how to contact you. I will protect your identity. No one at the state central registry and no child protective investigator can release your identity. It is confidential and protected by law. Even if a situation ends up in court, your name cannot be released. The toll-free number for the SCR is 1-800-342-3720. If you feel that a child is in immediate or impending danger, call 911. If you need services and supports, call 211. After the SCR receives your report, it is communicated to our local protective services team located at 100 Spring Street in Mexico, New York. The Child Protective Service Unit is ready to accept SCR reports and deploy a caseworker to the child's residence 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including all holidays. Next, the Child Protective Investigator is assigned to the case. The CPS investigator will respond by quickly working to identify all children living at the residence, and within the first 24 hours of receiving a report, we assure the children are safe. The investigation includes assessing risks, discovering a family's needs and strengths. Reasons that a child is at risk include domestic violence, untreated mental health illness, drug and alcohol addictions, and parents who are overwhelmed by the poverty and deprivation. We link critical services in our community to specific issues presented by a family. We want families to receive the supports and service they require to provide a safe, nurturing home for their children whenever possible. There are situations where our only choice is to seek legal interventions. We work with our supervisors and DSS attorneys to prepare a petition for family court. Even during this pandemic, we appear virtually in court to protect our children. To protect the general public, as well as our CPS investigators, we have modified our approach to investigations by adding additional protections for our families, as well as ourselves. We consult with our public health officials. We ask families a series of health screening questions, or if they have been in contact with anyone experiencing coronavirus symptoms. We have access to appropriate personnel, protective equipment. We maintain the 6-foot social distancing, wearing face masks, and washing our hands before and after visits to a home where a child is at risk. The virus has been a challenge, but it is important for you to know that we are not taking any shortcuts. Our protocols are still followed. Be sure a comprehensive and fact-based investigation is conducted. Although CPS investigators are the foot soldiers in the front lines in the fight against child maltreatment, we are not alone in the fight. Partnering with support agencies is crucial, such as state, county, and city law enforcement officials, and a valued partner of our most serious cases of child sexual and physical abuse, the Child Advocacy Center. We thank them for their unwavering support throughout this pandemic. It is important to recognize my fellow CPS investigators and all caseworkers at the DSS. They always conduct themselves as professionals and have a high degree of expertise in this specialized field of practice. Prior to becoming a part of this services work family, I was employed in the armed services and deployed multiple times to the front lines, mostly in the greater Middle East region of the world. I have witnessed my fellow CPS investigators displaying the same courage and selfless service as my brothers and sisters in arms, like Iraq and Afghanistan. Watching out for the best interests of children is our primary mission. Preserving and protecting families is our creed. I am very proud of what we have accomplished, and it is my continued pleasure to stand beside my fellow CPS investigators and hold the line while continuing to serve all of Oswego County. There is no such thing as a throwaway family. and no place in society for feelings that families in crisis are in any way a drain on the community's resources. They are the most vulnerable of us and are the primary reason community exists in the first place. I strongly urge our community and county government to take notice that having a strong, well-supported Child Protective Services unit is vital to our community's overall health and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for your military service as a non-commissioned officer for 17 years in the U.S. Army, specifically in the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault, 596th Infantry Regiment, and the 10th Mountain 171 Cavalry. And thank you for sharing the important work that you and your colleagues are doing. This is a very challenging time for all of us. We need to provide the safest possible environment for our children and families. While we honor those lost in service to our country, let's also remember those lost to COVID-19, say a prayer for their loved ones, and do our part to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Have a safe and peaceful Memorial Day weekend.